So I wanted to finally dive deep into the world of samurai movies, a genre I had thus far somewhat ignored, not for a lack of interest, it just never panned out. Well, this week, I broke that streak with the only proper way to enter the genre, the gateway drug that is Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. And woo-wee! I think it was probably 97,000% better than I was expecting it to be. Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai was released in 1999, starring the man himself, Forrest Whitaker. Music is done by RZA.
Power equality.
Always see everything, brother.
And the movie's directed by Jim Jarmusch. Most recently, he directed The Dead Don't Die, which so far hasn't received much love, but that won't deter me from watching it, especially now after having seen his masterpiece, Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. But where to begin? What thread of this fine Peruvian frazada do we first tug on? I'm gonna go full spoilers on this one. It came out in 1999, so either you've seen it or you'll never find it anyways. Just kidding. It's around. The one I found had neat Arabic subtitles, which gave no assistance whatsoever when Ghost Dog's best friend kept speaking in French. But alas, Ghost Dog himself couldn't understand him either, so I felt it only served to immerse me further into the film. I know what you're thinking. Juan, amigo, why didn't you use a VPN? A VPN? Have you seen our subscriber count? I didn't know they went that low. It's like seeing an exotic animal. It's like seeing a new color. Here I was thinking there was only 7 days in a week. A VPN? We can't even afford Taco Tuesday. Shh. You'll frighten it. Ghost Dog, who lives by the code of the samurai, is the self-proclaimed retainer to local mobster and made man, Louis, who saved his life in his youth. So Ghost Dog interprets and applies the Hagekure in his life, a practical and spiritual guide for a warrior. In fact, much of the story of Ghost Dog, The Way of the Warrior, is told by proxy through other stories. More on this later though.
If one were to say in a word what the condition of being a samurai is, its basis lies first in seriously devoting one's body and soul to his master.
So when I'm sitting down to watch a movie, probably in my underwear, but still wearing a nice comfortable blanket because I want to be free but safe, I like to pay a lot of extra attention to the first 10 minutes of a film. It usually can tell us a ton about what state a character is in, the world around that character, the state of affairs in general, and it can actually be really make or break in terms of how good the rest of the film is going to be. I mean, your ending can only really be as good as your beginning, because if you're going to have the payoff, you gotta have the setup. How this time is used varies from film to film. For example, in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises, the beginning is used to introduce one of the most iconic villains. And would you look at that, it's the topic of our next video, villains, not Bane specifically, so subscribe and check it out. With Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai, not much actually happens in the first 10 minutes. It's kinda Pirates of the Caribbean meets Driving Miss Daisy. Usually I'd be bored, but instead, I was intrigued. So what happened?
The fire rises.
The way of the samurai is found in death. Meditation on inevitable death should be performed daily.
So in the opening scene, Ghost Dog reads from the Hagekure on the importance of accepting that one is already dead. Especially important here is the lack of control in the deaths described. Death by fire, shaken to death by an earthquake, being struck by lightning, your buddy Zangief puts you in a Horosho chokeslam. But the most important one is being carried away by surging waves. This is important. So he lives by the code of the samurai and believes himself already dead, a subject of destiny. We also see in the first 10 minutes that he lives in a pigeon coop. We see that he is a hitman. We see that he weaves unnoticed through the streets, as in a Ghost Dog doesn't quite fit in anywhere in this society and is generally unseen. Not that he doesn't have friends, everybody kind of loves him. He's loved by all. We see the tool he uses to steal cars. His calm shows us that he's experienced in his trade. Once he's driving, he plays the song From Then Till Now, which depicts the state of affairs in the area. Cold streets, surrounded by police. And then the first 10 minutes end with another verse from the Hagekure that echoes his total commitment to the path of the samurai. So actually a lot happens, which is when I buckle up for my gateway into samurai movie land.
What does katana mean?
It means Japanese sword.
After the first 10 minutes, later on we learn that Louis has hired Ghost Dog via a carrier pigeon, of course, to whack another made man, Handsome Frank. Complications arise, leading to Ghostface having the entire mob pretty much out to get him and his master Louis, which really only leaves this American samurai with one option. Take out the entire mob to protect Louis and then allow Louis to kill him so that he can maintain his honor. Since Louis is actually part of the mob that Ghost Dog just destroyed. I don't know about you, but that's what I'd do.
Okay, Louis. I've seen everything I need to see.
I'll be honest, I chose to cover this movie for its wacky premise. What I didn't expect was just how profound and well made this film could be. It just had such a deep commitment to its one true subject, and it spends a lot of its time simply framing Ghost Dog in close-up shots as he blankly stares to something just off screen. The only clues we get to his internal condition are basically breadcrumbs from profound snippets of the Hagakure, paragraphs that are difficult to immediately comprehend, usually requiring a double take. And then when you consider Ghost Dog as an unreliable narrator, it only builds on the investment we already have in the character. So Ghost Dog lives in the only two patches of nature shown inside the city, among the local wildlife, if you can call it that, and the park. He sees himself as something ancient, existing out of time, practicing a philosophy not quite consistent with his reality in a time where everything is changing, something the mobsters actually echo with their love of cartoons, and something Vargo, the main mobster that we're trying to kill, can completely relate with. They even go as far as being thankful that Ghost Dog is taking them out in the old way.
Like real fucking gangsters.
During all this, Ghost Dog lives his life pretty much in denial of modern day life, and he defines himself through stories that aren't his own, which segues nicely into my favorite theme of the film, how Ghost Dog is supported by other stories. So the first book that he uses to kind of define his life isn't really a story, it's the Hagakure, and it's the base philosophy for Ghost Dog. The words he recites have some impact on the story in one way or another. For example, both him and Vargo both having the determination after their metaphorical decapitation to take one more action. In the case of Ghost Dog, it was actually 3 decapitations. Damn, this guy's determined. But perhaps the most meaningful paragraph from the Hagakure in this movie would be the one that emptiness is form. First there is nothing, and then there is something. Similar to how Ghost Dog defines his reality. In the film, when both Ghost Dog and Louis recall the first time that they met each other, they both have differing accounts, which ties into the next book mentioned in the movie, the Rashomon. Ghost Dog loves one of the stories because it shows how different people can all see the same event and have different accounts of that same event. So this shows that Ghost Dog is aware of this, but he chooses not to contend with it. There's also other comparisons, like Ghost Dog has an electronic key similar to Les Samurai, in which Costello carries a huge ring of keys so he can steal any Citroën DS. There's a couple scenes that mimic Branded to Kill, and in the finale, Ghost Dog asks, what is this, high noon? But perhaps my favorite story would be his own implied self-comparison to the monster in Frankenstein, serving as foreshadowing for his own end.
He sprung from the cabin window upon the ice raft which lay close to the vessel.
I gotta cut him off there because I don't want to get copyright infringement, so I'm gonna read it myself. He sprung from the cabin upon the ice raft which lay close to the vessel. He was soon borne away by the waves and lost in darkness and distance. A line that was actually revised from Mary Shelley's original, and pushing himself off, he was carried away by the waves, and I soon lost sight of him in the darkness and distance, wherein the monster pushes himself off to be carried away by the waves, something that gives the monster a little bit more agency over his destiny. And then the part of Walton losing sight of him, signifying his retreat from the human view, completely allowing the possibility of the monster's return. Ghostface also chooses to omit that in the line, the monster was just speaking. The book he is actually reading says he sprang from the cabin window as he said this. Upon the ice raft which lay close to the vessel, he was blown away by the waves and lost in darkness and distance. Such a small detail, to me, makes the film so much more profound. To choose that revision of the text implies that Ghost Dog sees himself as a monster without agency, awaiting to be carried off by destiny to his death. Something that he mentions at the beginning of the film in that first 10 minutes of the film, which, oh my god, we're getting the payoff, folks. We're getting the payoff. Or maybe I'm reading too much into this. But can we call it a samurai film? Yes, I think definitely yes we can. We have the main markers. A warrior who lives by the code of the samurai, who is ultimately betrayed by his master. If you liked the video, consider subscribing. If you haven't seen Ghost Dog yet, just give it a search here on YouTube. Maybe it's still up. And I hope you love it as much as I did. Take care, guys.
This ain't no ancient culture here, mister.
Sometimes it is.